Hello everyone, my name's Stonesy Boy and welcome back to Reading with Stonesy. Today we have a long episode away from us, my friends. We are reading 31 pages. I don't know what Stonesy set this up that we're reading 31 pages today. They're gonna be, let's just say they're gonna be talking to HR. Cause, my throat is gonna be killing me. As a matter of fact, I just started this episode because I knew later on if I tried to do this episode, I wouldn't want to do it. So, I need to take a sip of my water. This is going to be a long one. Last time, our good friend is worried about Julius being turned into spaghetti by a robot. So this time we'll figure out if he did or didn't. So without further ado, let's begin. He couldn't say, I have to go to school and free Julius. Even though that's exactly what we do, I had to run 3 blocks to his house. Yeah, oh, right. Also, we're starting on 102, not 101. I accidentally read a little ahead. So yeah, we're starting on 102. Just FYI. He couldn't say, I have to go to school and free Julius. Even though it's exactly what he had to do, he tried to run 3 blocks to his house, get his bike, and pedal back to school. Then he had to get in a locked school without setting off an alarm. Thankfully, he overheard the senior talk about a basement door he was wired to the school security system, and the key ringing next to the janitor kept it in a fake rock. Then he had to get through the darkened school and wetting his pants like a scared little kid, and then he had to unlock Julius and run for his life. No, wait. He should go check on Julius before running. What if the worst fears were true? What if Julius was badly injured? Wouldn't Reed have to call an ambulance? He got groaned out loud, but he stopped himself and Julius was dead. Reed? Reed blinked and he realized Pickle had said his name. What? He said. You said you had to do something, Pickle reminded him. I asked you what you had to do when your break took a vacation and turned into a weird statue. Statue? Reed was stalling. He tried to think a reasonable story. What does he have to do right now, other than go save Julius from a modern-day version of the wheel? Shelley, Pickle said, I think something's wrong with Reed. Shelley looked up from her book. Of course something's wrong with Reed, he said. He doesn't engage in enough intellection and he lacks appropriate nesis when it comes to schoolwork. Oh snap, Reed thought. Even in his agitated state, he recognized that Shelley had to use 2 words of the day. However, he was far too distracted to care about what they meant. I'm not talking about Reed's commonplace imperfections, Pickle said. I'm referring to the fact that he's currently making no sense and his body keeps forgetting how to remain animated. Well, see, that's what I like about Reed, Shelley said. Reed perked up, momentarily forgetting everything, but finding out that Shelley liked about him. What's that? Pickle asked. Reed was relieved he didn't have to be the one who asked. He rarely makes sense. I like that. It gives me a challenge and keeps me interested. Reed couldn't stop himself. He grinned like a maniac. Thankfully, no one was looking at him. Pickle and Shelley were looking at each other, or his gaze was on the little robot, whose metal limbs were now distorted like they looked elastic. I can see your point, Pickle said to Shelley, but my original question remains. Pickle returned attention to Reed. What do you have to do? Before Reed could come up with something lame, the little robot hit the side of the miniature house again, but when it did, something large hit the outside of the Gerard's house. Shelley looked at the French doors and their attention back to her book. Wind must have come up. We probably lost another branch off of the big fir tree, Pickle said. Reed looked at the window. A short time Miss Gerard had left. Night had slipped in and around the house. Now blackness clung through the windows like a fungus. Reed couldn't see anything in the framed glass of the French doors except the reflection of the room he was in. In the reflection, he watched Ori aim the robot outside the house again. He watched it hit the miniature house, and in the same instant, something hit outside the house in a reverberating thump. Reed tensed. He looked at his friends. Neither Pickle nor Shelley reacted to the latest sound, and apparently satisfied with the wind and fallen branch explanation of something thump. Or since they were reading again, they may not have even heard it. Well, Reed heard it, and a wind explanation didn't cut it. He was listening intently now. Even though he'd heard the impacts against the house, he wasn't hear the wind strong enough to blow the branch in the house and would make the noise. He shouldn't have been hearing a whistling, whooshing sound if the wind was blowing that hard. And except for the continued crackle of a fireplace and the sound of a robot hitting Shelley's little house, the only other things Reed would hear the impacts on the side of the house. Every time a robotic skeleton hit the model house. What if it was Julius out there? What if it was truly been manipulated by Pickle's remote all this time? By now, what condition would Julius be in? What Reed lacked in intellection may be made up for imagination. He would actually easily envision a body covered in swelling, black and contusions. He would see limbs limp as rubber and bone fragments poking through the skin. He'd see a battered face, beating skull, and a spine warped into something sickeningly abnormal. If in this exoskeleton Julius had been spun, then bashed into things over and over, he had been twisted and contorted the way Pickle's robot had been. Would Julius even be human anymore? Would he be a mutilated mass of broken bones and torn flesh? Was it Shelley's history book that said it was victims of the wheel? A victim of the wheel ended up looking like a moaning monster of bloody tentacles. Yep, that's what Julius would have become, and everything Ori had done to Pickle's robot had been done to Julius's exoskeleton. Ori ramming the churning robot into the miniature house and again. Outside, something hit the real house with a similar force. Reed couldn't believe Shelley and the brothers were ignoring the sounds, whether or not hear them. You ever said you were going? Pickle said. Another robot impacted the model house. Another thump outside. Pickle didn't mention the mimicking sound. Reed's gaze gave out and dropped to the ground. He was no longer eager to go outside anymore. No, he wanted more than anything to stay inside, maybe forever. He looked around. There's still smart windows and doors locked. What if they weren't? No, of course they were. Mr. Gerard wouldn't forget to lock up. He was frantical about the safety, about keeping her children well fed. Reed? Reed looked at Pickle. Oh, I forgot I was thinking of. You forgot you wanted to leave a few seconds ago? Pickle asked. Reed nodded. I think I ate too much. My brain is drowning in buffalo sauce. Pickle came up with a partial smile. Mom does make great chicken wings. He leaned forward. Hey, I wonder if there were any more. Are those popper things? He looked at his sister. Hey, Shell, do you know if Mom put away any extra chicken wings from popper things? Shelly looked at the book. Huh? Chicken wings, poppers. Oh no, they're all gone, Shelly said. And you can't be hungry already. How's it fair you get to eat so much and stay so skinny? My life would be paradisical if I would eat like you and no consequences. Like paradise, they thought, in spite of himself. Ori had stopped plowing the robot in the miniature house. Now he's circling the robot around the house at dizzying speed. I can't help it if I'm hungry, Pickle ordered his sister. Well, you can't be hungry. Maybe you're just thirsty. I want a soda, Ori called out. And the first thing he said once he returned to playing with Pickle's robot. Hey, that sounds good, Pickle said. We don't have any, Shelly said. Why? Pickle asked. Remember? Mom read an article about combination of carbonation and sugar. He discovered that our bodies process a mixture as well as poison in the system. Right, I do remember that, Pickle sighed. We shouldn't let her read. All it seems to read are the things that make our lives suck. Reed, who by now had wounded himself tighter than Pickle's grasping the basic math, blurted, Your lives don't suck. Pickle had an open mouth, turned to look at Reed. Sorry, Reed said. Sorry. Pickle said nothing, but Shelly put down her book and looked at Reed with one eyebrow raised. Reed shrugged. It's just that you're so lucky to live in this nice house and a mother who always makes good food for you and loves you, and he stopped because he felt like he was going to cry, and he did not want to do that. It was a stress. He was making himself crazy with this panic. The little robot started climbing up the side of the Shelly's miniature house, and it looked like somehow grown suction cups on its legs. It scaled the side of the toy house as if it was a spider. For a moment, Reed had mesmerized by the robot's functionality, then realized he was hearing something outside the Gerard's house. Something new, something majorly disturbing. Something was crawling up outside the wall of the family room. No, that couldn't be. Could it? Reed tried to block out the sound with the little robot's clinks and drones. He listened hard beyond that. This wasn't just a shuffling sound of something on the house. Yes, there was sort of scrabbling similar to what the sound one saw a raccoon climb up the side of his own house. Maybe it was a raccoon out there now. Maybe he was really going insane. He was imagining all this. Maybe he was going insane and what he was hearing wasn't possible. But then why would he suddenly be going loopy? Was it guilt? Was it unadulterated wuss in the second it had come a little gusty, his brain lost a grip on reality? Was he going crazy because he'd locked Joyce in an exoskeleton? You're right, Pickle said. Reed almost jumped out of his skin. What? Pickle cocked his head at Reed's peculiar behavior. I said you're right. We are lucky. It's illogical of me to have allowed to escape my awareness. Perhaps my blood sugar's low. If I had a soda, we don't have any, Shelly repeated. I want a soda, Ori said again. He must have been wanting one badly because he was still playing with Robotic skeleton. He'd gone to climb up the second floor of the small house. Reed jumped up and headed down the stairs. Where are you going? Pickle asked. Reed stopped. Good question. He didn't normally wander around the Gerard's house if he lived there. He'd been upstairs, of course, to both the twins' bedrooms and even in Ori's bedroom, but he'd been in their rooms when they were in their rooms. That reason would he have to go upstairs now? What reason, besides the uncontrollable need to know if something was clutching on the exterior walls of the house at the second floor windows? Sorry. I thought I have a book I need to borrow. I was going to get it. I should have asked first. Pickle studied Reed for a few seconds, then he shrugged. Sure, go ahead. You don't need to ask. Your family. This, for some reason, made Reed choke and cough, as if its words created an emotional hairball in his throat. But he knew it would words of choking him. It was guilt. No one in the Drawer family would have done what he did Julius. Even if Julius was still in the locked metal skeleton robotics classroom, they sure wouldn't have let Julius be tortured, possibly to death, by Pickle's remote. The second they had been inkling that might have happened, they would be gone to check. What Reed lacked was initiative, motivation, ineptus, nesis, an effort to attain a goal. Reed shook his head. His brain was weird. He was a total freak out because he was pretty sure he'd tortured someone. He was now climbing up outside the Gerard's house, robot exoskeleton. His brain was defining the words of the day. Maybe if Reed had been Nesis this evening, he would have saved Julius before Julius started crawling up the side of the house. Stop it, Reed screamed in his head. Julius is not on the side of the house. Oh, how Reed hoped he was out of his mind. He had a very, very, very bad feeling, though. He was sane as everyone. For some reason, he did just come clairvoyant, or was it omniscient? Or maybe he was observant and scenery aware. Because he would hear something that was definitely more than not tree limbs crawling against the house. Reed realized that Pickle had been given him permission to go upstairs, and Reed was still standing there. What was wrong with him? He shook himself and strode the stairs. When he ran up the stairs, two at a time. On the landing, Reed stopped and looked around. Now that he was here, what was he going to do? If he looked out the window and possibly saw actually what he was afraid to see, what was he going to do about it? How could he get rid of Julius in the exosuit without his friends knowing? Heck, for that matter, how could he get rid of Julius, period? Reed looked up and down the hall in complete indecision. What now? Shelley's tidy white and green room in the light. Shelley loved white and green, the colors of purity and life, she once told Reed. Pickles' cluttered, black-walled room on the left. Ori's race car motif bedroom was across from Pickles' room. A small pale yellow half bath was straight ahead of Reed. Light suddenly shined through the window in the bathroom. From outside, Reed gulped. He remembered that the Gerards had motion sensor lights in the backyard. One of them wanted to come on. Reed stared at the window intently, but nothing else happened. Except for the light. He didn't see anything. Nothing appeared in the windows. No shadows, no movement. He could hear something moving anymore either. He strained to listen. Nothing. Remember, he was supposed to be up here looking for a book. He figured he should head to Pickles' room and find something that he would come up with a plausible explanation for wanting. He ignored the prickly sensation in the back of his neck and he took a step in the dark hallway. Images of Julia's maimed body, jumped in the forefront of Reed's mind. He had to swallow down a scream. It was out of control imagination, he thought. Flipping a switch just inside the doorway of Pickles' room, Reed gratefully left the dark hall and entered the friend's domain. Stuffed with books, CDs, and scientific equipment, Pickles' room was somewhat of a laboratory than a bedroom. And only a twin bed with Constellation's bedspread suggested the room might have been a boy who just his teens. He rested his face, screamed, "Genius!" Reed crossed the Pickle wall-to-wall bookshelf. He went to the section where he knew Pickle kept fiction. Pickle read more non-fiction than fiction, but he would have a selection of sci-fi books he claimed were educational, as many as his science books. Reed plucked one of his books from a shelf without looking at it. After he had the book, he stepped over the window and looked out Pickle's gray curtains. Unfortunately, the light of the room gave him a little more than his own reflection. He hadn't thought that, obviously. No, you don't know. Try to see outside at night from a well-lit room. But even in the reflection of the room in the way, Reed could see through, well, nothing was outside the window. Clutching his book, he'd taken from the shelf, he turned the door. He spotted bloody tissues on Pickle's nightstand. Pickle's nose. Reed was supposed to remind him to ice his nose. He'd do that when he get back downstairs. If he got to go back downstairs. If what if Julius in his possibly ruined state was lurking outside the windows up here and waiting for Reed to appear and would crash through the glass and get revenge? Why was Reed even up here? He should have been hiding far away from him, thought Julius had been exoskeleton was. He went toward danger instead away from it. Someone who wasn't 100% sure danger was real. Reed had to know whether his thoughts were right or crazy. He made himself return to the hallway so he would continue his search in whatever was or wasn't out there. It was still dark enough upstairs and it was still silent. Reed kept up the hall to Ori's bedroom. At the threshold, he tripped over something and caught himself with the door jamb. His heart rate sped up. He heard a metallic clink in his foot, made a contact with whatever it was. What if it was an exoskeleton? He regularly turned on the light, almost afraid to see what was on the floor. It was a toy fire truck. Reed exhaled. He looked around Ori's chaotic mess. He couldn't remember seeing so many toy cars in one place, not even a toy store. Ori had one of those rugs and racetrack on it. Toy cars were scattered over the track, and beyond the racetrack onto the wall-to-wall carpet, too. Nothing unusual there. A bright red shade in a cartoon race car was pulled over Ori's single window. Reed couldn't bring himself to open that shade and look outside. As he flipped the light switch and stood once again in the hall, he occurred to Reed that turning on the lights had been that smart. Not only did the interior lights impair his night vision, but the lights telegraphed where he was. If something was outside, it wouldn't have been hiding just turn on the lights. Well, it was just dumb. Why would Julius be hiding? If Julius was outside. If anything was outside. Reed wasn't sure what the point that either possibility would bring him relief. Whether there was a broken and gory monster clinging to the side of the house or Reed was having a complete mental breakdown, either way, he wouldn't just be standing there forever. Reed? Shelley called from the bottom of the stairs. Reed froze. Had he been caught reading her diary or something? Yeah? His voice broke. We're going down to the corner to get sodas. Do you want to come with? No, that's okay. You go ahead. I'll stay here if that's alright with you. Sure, just don't go into Ori's room. You'll probably break a foot on one of those cars. I'm pretty sure he has some kind of vehicle assembly line in his room. Sally snorted, and then Ori protested in the background. I do not. Wait, what's an assembly line? Reed smiled. For a second, he almost felt normal as he listened to Pickle, Shelley, and Ori head to the door. Oh, Reed? Pickle called. Reed went rigid again. He cleared his throat. Yeah, what? Don't tell Mom where he went if she comes home early, Pickle yelled up the stairs. You're an idiot, Shelley told her brother. You think she doesn't know everything we do? She does? Ori asked in an odd tone. Everything? Everything, Shelley said empathetically as the front door opened. Reed listened to the stomps and shuffles of a friend. Leaving the house. The door slammed. He waited. He heard the rock slide into place. He heard the silent thank you for the way Shelley would adopt her mother's safety and consciousness. By the time he heard ultra aware he was completely 100% alone in Gerard's house, he had thought outside would be bad for him. Really bad. What if Julius had been waiting for the opportunity just like this? But why? Why would Julius just be a lacerated monster? Would he just want to kill anything in sight? Wait, now Reed's brain was actually getting way out there. Just because Julius might have been mangled by an exoskeleton Reed had locked him into, Nori had inadvertently made him do things that tortured Julius in mind-crumbling pain, just didn't mean Julius had suddenly turned into a killer. He was just a kid. Maybe a horrible kid, but even now a badly injured kid, but just a kid. But was he just a kid? Not really. Julius was a really mean kid. Reed would never forget the day Julius first showed up to school in 3rd grade. He wouldn't forget it because it was his own torture started. Julius had been tormenting Reed for 6 years. Julius seemed to thrive on humiliating other kids, and he seemed to get downright euphoric of being hurt them. For all Reed knew, Julius was already a killer. At the very least, he'd probably been murdering and dissecting squirrels for years. So if Julius was now in unspeakable pain because of what Reed did, it made sense that he'd become even more homicidal now. Reed didn't know for sure, but he figured agony brought on the worst in a person. The house creaked and Reed leaped out of his pointless thoughts and back into the dark hole. That sound was just the house creaking, wasn't it? And listened for several minutes. He didn't hear anything else. He crept down the hall into Shelley's room, where he wouldn't step anything in there. He was obsessed with order. Going slowly, he felt his way through a room and reached their window, which he knew overlooked the front of the house. Standing in the back of the edge window, he lifted the edge over heavy green curtains and peeked outside. Nothing was out there. What should have been? Below the window, the porch roof along the house, by the street, by the mailbox leaning a little to the left. 2 large cedar trees stretched their branches toward Shelley's window. One of the branches brushed against the side of the house, although, as Reed had thought, it wasn't windy, it was a slight breeze, and the branch moved against the siding. What was the sound Reed had heard earlier? Had he gotten himself all worked up for nothing? He hoped so, but he didn't think he worried about nothing. Scanning in the night, he searched for any sign of movement. He saw none. Stepping away from the window, Reed picked out his way to Shelley's room. In the hallway, he hesitated. Should he go into Mr. and Mrs. Gerard's room? He looked around. As long as he didn't touch anything, why not? It wasn't like he was going to turn the light and snoop around. He just wanted to look out the big window, which overlooked the backyard. He crossed the hall and stepped into the master bedroom. The night light near the master bath desk, a dim glow throughout the room. He created a creepy shadow. But at least it was maneuvering the window easy. All he had to do was swivel a rocking chair away from the window and nudge aside the curtain. He was able to see nothing unusual. Again, the yard looked away from all its quiet. Enough of this! Reed dropped the curtain and strode from the room. He looked over the hall and ran down the steps and returned to the family room. The family room looked the way it had been when he left it, minus the Gerard siblings. Apparently, Pickle had put a small log in the fire after Reed went upstairs. Because the fire was flaring up behind the metal screen that protected the room with stray sparks, Pickle's book was on the end table with his dad's easy chair. Shelley's book was lying on the sofa. Reed sank in a cushy carpet. He looked around. There was a little robot. He didn't see it. Did Ori take it from him? Reed spotted the remote on the floor next to the sofa, but robot wasn't in sight. Maybe Ori got stuck under a piece of furniture. Reed turned to look to Shelley's miniature house. It was a really amazing thing. It seemed to be accurate in every little detail. All the furniture he could see in the front porch accurate inside, though the open windows were exactly like the real furniture in the Noble-South house. What was the art and stuff, he wondered. He scooted over to examine the house more closely. As he figured he could have, Shelley recreated all the art and knickknacks inside the house. Anything in the real house and the toy house. He even put pencil marks on the dates on the wall inside the kitchen doorway that marks on the dates in the chronological Gerard kids' growth for years. And outside, one of the downspouts was bent like a real one in front was. It got bent, and Reed and Pickle were trying to learn how to throw a football. One of the errant tosses, though forceful, went badly askew and left a permanent indent in the middle. Reed shifted again, and he looked at the miniature version of the room he sat in. Wow, he breathed. His super miniature house made a miniature house. Talk about realism. He wouldn't have been surprised at him that Shelley was her model house. She really never did anything halfway. If she couldn't do it well, she stopped doing it. And if she couldn't do it well, she stopped doing it. Reed remembered finger painting with Pickle and Shelley in kindergarten. The teacher had been wandering around telling everyone they're doing great, but when she got to Shelley, she didn't say anything. Aren't I doing great too? Shelley asked. Of course, kiddo, the teacher said. You're lying, Shelley accused. I can tell you by your tone of voice. She stood up and put her hands on her hips, careful to avoid getting pain in her red pants. Reed remembered watching her teacher think it over. He really decided on the truth. Well, you aren't really getting to the point of finger painting. It's to be free with the color and have fun. You're trying too hard, making everything too perfect. Fine, Shelley said and reached up, grabbed her paper and marched over and put her finger painting in the trash. Reed grinned at the memory. And then he saw something silver and shiny glint through the window at the back of the mini model house family room. He leaned forward and canned his head and could see behind the mini model house. Aha, there's where the little robot went. It was inside the miniature house, behind the mini miniature house. Reed started reaching a miniature house to rescue the robot. Before he could get a hand through the front door, though, a little robotic skeleton raised up on the floor of the house. Reed jumped, and he started to shake his head at the edginess. And then Julius sprang up from behind the model house. Reed scrambled backward, screaming. In his mind, he caught what he'd seen Julius become a vivid imagination. He prepared him to see the boy he looked now, but Julius didn't look anything like Julius. He was, in fact, exactly what Reed's mind had known Julius would be. Now anything but a fleshy octopus with massive, pulpy limbs attached to a metal frame. Julius no longer to be called a boy. He couldn't be called human. Reed wasn't even sure what Julius was alive. Yes, Julius moved, but Reed didn't know there was Julius initiating the movement or if his corpse was being controlled by the metal framework latched into Julius and a loathsome external parasite. Julius' face was slack, and there's no life there. It was slack because it looked like a bone structure of his forehead, cheeks, and jaw had been pulverized. His features were so distorted he resembled some sort of crudely sewn cloth version of himself. no longer framed by a wavy blonde hair because of that hair was now sticky and stringy and congealed blood. Julia's face was a repulsive doll's face, a doll much worse than Alexa's baby doll with staring back eyes. Julia's eyes were 1,000 times more disconcerting than empty black ones. His eyes had rolled back in his head and all showing his whites, the murky, cloudy whites. His ghostly whites made him look like a sightless zombie, and just like a zombie, Julius, alive or not, was moving. He was moving determinedly toward Reed. Reed willed his legs to work, and he struggled to find his feet. Looking wildly in the room, he tried to decide the best escape route. The windows? They compiled the latching system. He wouldn't be able to get them open in time. The doors? Duh. He ran toward the French doors. He knew the special lock, the line that requires keys on the outside or the inside, but the key was kept near the door, wasn't it? He scanned the area near the door. No key. He realized he had no idea where the drawers kept their key, and had no time to look for it. Turning, Reed ran toward the entryway. The Julius thing scuttled from behind the major house and tumbled across the floor after him. Reed tore through the archway, rounded the corner, heading towards the front door. Before he could get there, though, Julius sprang to the ceiling and skittered past Reed to block his way to the front door. Reed couldn't pause to consider his options. He raced up the stairs. Glancing over his shoulder, Reed watched in horror as Julius in the metal frame flailed crushed limbs and grotesquely to catapult from every entry ceiling to the stairway wall. Julius' thing scaled the stairway wall as Reed ran. Reed was barely able to get ahead of the pursuer. At the landing, Reed got a glimpse of Julius leaping in the ceiling again. Reed turned, aiming for Pickles' room. His plan would call it that, but to use Pickles' scientific equipment as weapons to keep Julius at bay. If Reed escaped out of Pickles' front-facing window, like Shelley's, it was over the front porch roof, so Reed had to need to stop 2 stories to the round, although at this point, he had dropped multiple stories if it meant getting away from Julius, or what was left of him. Feeling something at the same time rubbery and sharp nick his shoulder as he tore into Pickles' room. Reed managed to get a light on what he entered. He grabbed the first piece of equipment he saw, a big, heavy microscope, almost too big for him to lift, but he managed. Once he had the microscope in a firm grip, Reed turned and swung blindly out in front of him. He was sure he'd connect with Julius because Julius was right on his heels. But Julius wasn't there. Reed looked around desperately. Where did Julius go? Reed looked up. Julius' abomination dropped off the ceiling and landed on Reed before Reed could swing the microscope again. The impact knocked the microscope from Reed's hand. It tumbled across the room, and Reed screamed and tried to squirm out under the horrendous combination of the hard, sharp metal and squishy, clammy, destroyed body parts. At the same time, he tried to hold his breath because Julius' thing smelled dreadful. It smelled like blood, putrid flesh, and stale sweat. It was dripping on Reed, too. Julius' flesh was no longer stylish clothing, perforated by puncture wounds caused by jutting, cracked bones. He was smeared in dried blood, and his body still sweeps fresh blood, too. Galvanized by the revolution, Reed shook out his metal and flesh attempted to engulf him. He thought of all the strength he had and he'd obviously got it from somewhere else. At first, Reed thought he was going to be able to get away. Julius' hands didn't work right. If they couldn't grip Reed firmly, Reed managed to slither out from under Julius, and he stood preparing the race around the bed and escape out of the window. But what Julius lacked in coordination, the grip made up for speed. Reed made it halfway to the window when something caught his foot. No, not something, Julius, or his frame, or both. Reed looked back at the combination of metal and tissue coiled around his ankle. "Let me go," Reed yelled. Why does he waste his breath? Did he really think shouting command would stop whatever Julius had become? It would stop human Julius. It wasn't sure going to stop for this version of Julius. Reed kicked out, and his foot slipped away a little. Then Julius clamped down harder. How? How was Julius able to grip anything without working bones? It didn't matter. Reed was distracting himself with all the irrelevant thoughts. He was trying to put up the inevitable. Reed wasn't about to get away from Julius, not even if he made it to the window. Julius, now powered by a robotic framework a mere human couldn't defeat, especially if the human was Reed. Plus, Julius now seemed to be supercharged by the monstrosity that he'd become. And the monstrosity had been born of some kind of emotions propelled humans past their usual limitations. Emotions like pain and fear. Emotions like rage. Julius's rage was more powerful than Reed's guilt. Reed didn't stand a chance. But he tried, kicking at his feet if the power swimming against the tide. Reed's army crawled across the rug. He willed himself away from what held him. He imagined himself going through Pickles' window and jumping to freedom. Reed made out a banshee-like cry and yanked his foot from Julius' grasp. He staggered his feet and started toward the window. Before Reed could take a step, though, Julius was on him again. This time Julius fell fully onto Reed, and they both went down on Pickles' bed. Reed was pinned under Julius' hideous remains and the metal frame strapped to them. Reed inhaled Julius' stench and gagged. Even as he gagged, he cried out, "Help!" Whose help was he calling for? No one else was in the house. Were the neighbors here? Reed's face was just inches from Julius's lifeless eyes and sagging mouth. Gagging again and whimpering, Reed turned his face away from the horror above him. He shut his eyes and could make a macabre attacker disappear by pretending it wasn't there. His heart pounding so loud he could hear little else. Reed bucked and lurched, trying to free himself from the thing, but he wasn't strong enough. Even though Julius had been gripping Reed had any work, his weight alone, along with that of the metal framework, was enough to pin Reed in place. Reed was strapped, particularly hyperventilating in shock and fright. Reed forced himself to open his eyes and look at Julius. When he did, he was sorry. He immediately closed his eyes again. He wouldn't stand looking at the milky white irisless eyes staring down at him. Or were they staring? Reed didn't know if Julius was conscious. How would he be with bones crushed in the smithereens? It was most likely Julius was dead, and the movement of the thing strapped into it caused by some kind of short in the system. Maybe if the inference of Pickle's remote was so badly fried the exoskeleton system is mildly functioning on his own now. Something dripped onto Reed's face. He had opened his eyes, worse not knowing what was happening above him. Reed opened his eyes. Maybe not knowing wasn't worse. Blood was spooling from the spongy mass that used to be Julius's face. It looked like a misshapen sponge that had been used to clean up a massacre. And now it was dropping its warm, wet contents on Reed's cheek. A previous cream-colored scarf looped around Julius' neck was saturated, too. It hung around Reed like a dead animal in the slaughterhouse. Mesmerized by how the whites of Julius' eyes bulging out from the long, blonde lashes, Reed couldn't turn away from the malformed thing above him. But he still struggled. Grunting, he shoved up toward all his might. He didn't go good. It was the weight of 100 cars pinned him down. Please, please, Reed whispered. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I didn't know it was going to happen to you. I wanted to be locked overnight. I didn't want this to happen. He knew there was no use begging, but he couldn't help himself. He opened his mouth to say something else, but that's when the question of whether Julius had consciousness is answered. Julius shifted downward, pressed his heavy, secret mass against Reed's mouth. Reed could no longer speak, but he could hear. In the distance downstairs, the other kids were returning a soda run. Reed could hear Pickle suggesting to Show that he could construct a better torture device than anything medieval people could come up with. I'm not sure what would be accomplished from it, Pickle, Shelley said. Reed strained, grunting, desperate to get their attention, tried to yell. Reed only make unintelligible groans. Downstairs, Ori piped up. Can I play with the remote again, Pickle? Julius shifted. And Reed allowed himself a moment of hope. Maybe he could get away. Pouring every bit of life force into the muscle, he surged upward. He hoped to erupt like a volcano and get ejected from Julius toward freedom. But he didn't erupt. Or rather, he did, but before he getting ejected away, Julius' cage imprisoned him. Julius' smashed hands somehow grabbed hold of Reed's outstretched hands. Julius' formless legs somehow managed to wrap tightly around Reed's ankles. Reed was now linked to Julius, and Julius has a exoskeleton. And Reed knew what was going to happen next. With the pressure of Julius' face wedged between Reed's throat, Reed couldn't make a sound that he heard downstairs. As he was facing the worst nightmare, he couldn't scream. Downstairs, Pickle responded to his brother's question. Sure, Ori, go nuts. We have all night. Ori grinned and knelt to the floor against the miniature house, usually interested only in cars and racing. Ori was surprised at how much fun the robot was. Maybe he would get his brother to build him and other things. He had never been able to get a robot to move this way before. It was super cool. Pressing a button, Ori got a little robot car out from behind the miniature house. He carefully maneuvered the robot out of the miniature house and not wanting to get his sister's bad side. One time, he ran a little skeleton into the wall, and when he did, he heard something bump on the floor above his head. He looked up and didn't hear anything else, so he continued carefully guiding the robot out of the house and onto the miniature porch. When he got out, he let a little fist bump. Happy with himself, Ori grinned wider and decided to see if things could get the robot to do even weirder things. There was nothing before he got a soda. He began manipulating the robot so fast his finger was just a big blur. In response, the little robot shot off the toy house porch and began sprinting and thrashing. While Ori shouted in triumph, the little robotic skeleton began popping and snapping its metal limbs in all kinds of unnaturally delightful ways. And that is the end. I read 31 pages in under 25 minutes. That is a new record for me. I'm impressed with myself. But what we should be impressed with more is the fact that today we read pages 101 to 130 to pages 132. My mouse just died. That was awkward. Pages 101 to 132. So we can quickly go badink. And next time we will be reading pages 135 to 150. Yeah, just 150. Cool. So next episode's going to be easy. The episode after that's going to be easy. The episode after that's going to be easy. I think this is the last episode that we have that was decently difficult. I apologize. I had to drink a drink. Let's see. So next time it's going to be 15 pages. Next time after that, it's going to be 14 pages. Next time after that, it's going to be 14 pages. And the next time after that, it's going to be 14 pages. So yeah, we honestly are on a good track with this book. But of course, that's not what you guys care about. What you guys care about is the reading corner of the day. Serving it up Stonseys way. Bop. Today we are reading about the Field Spaniel. I don't actually know a Field Spaniel in real life, but what I do know is they look like giant cups of chocolate milk. I mean, look at him. Look how silly he is. He's got big old droopy eyes. He's so sad. But of course, we can't make fun of him without knowing his history. So, the history of the Field Spaniel is that the Field Spaniel shares its early history with the English Cocker Spaniel. The only difference between the two breeds, initially being one of the size, the Field Spaniel is composed of the Land Spaniels weighing over 25 pounds. These larger Field Spaniels were derived from the Cocker, Sussex, and English Water Spaniels, and were initially required to be black. After becoming recognized as a separate breed for the late 1800s, the Field Spaniel succumbed from breeding and exaggeration. A repeated infusion of Sussex Spaniel blood resulted in the dogs of excessive length, overly heavy bones, and short legs. The breed lost its usefulness as a hunter, and although it enjoyed short vogue in the early 1900s, it ultimately teetered on the brink of extinction. Crosses in English Springer Spaniels made it more effort to recreate the original Field Spaniel. The crosses were successful, and the modern Field Spaniel was not only a handsome replica of its former self, but also an able hunter. All modern Field Spaniels have been traced back to the four Field Spaniels from the 1950s. Rodney Regal, Gormac Teal, to Columbia of Defont, and Elmbury Moroa of Rewells. Despite the fact that the Field Spaniels have been shown in America in the late 1800s, no champions have been made up between 1916 and 1966. In fact, the breed was initially extinct in America of much of that time. The breed was reintroduced into America in the late 1960s. The Field Spaniel remains among one of the rarest breeds in America. Ain't that neat? But of course now, you know the cool little rarity facts of the Field Spaniel. So now, you want to own it. But before you own it, you need to know the temperament. Well, the temperament of the Field Spaniel is that the Field Spaniel is the happiest when it has a job to do. Although independent in nature, it is devoted, sensitive, and willing to please. Generally cheerful and affectionate, it is an excellent family companion as long as it is given regular exercise. The Field Spaniel is especially known for its docile nature, and is typically for a Field Spaniel for somewhat reserved with strangers. Ooh, so it might not be good with strangers, but it's pretty good with you. So now, you know that this dog might be a pretty good protector, but what can it do otherwise besides that? How can this dog benefit me? How do I keep this dog up and running? Well, the upkeep of the Field Spaniel is that the Field Spaniel needs daily exercise, and even though it's happiest when given a chance to run and explore, its needs can be met with a long walk on a leash. It does best when allowed to divide its time between the house and yard. It thrives in human companionship and should not be deprived of the family. Its coat needs brushing and combing once or twice a weekly. The hair inside the ears and between the foot pads should be clipped. Straggling hair should be scissored every few months, and some clipping and thinning is needed for some show dogs. The ears should be checked and cleaned regularly. Some can be somewhat sloppy and some snore. Now, if you are a child, please cover your ears. If you're an adult or teenager, please start taking your notes because we are on the health of the Field Spaniel, aka the worst part of the video. Well, the major concerns of the Field Spaniel is CHD. Minor concerns are otis externa and hypothyroidism. They're occasionally seen with heart murmurs, patellar luxation, and seizures. Their suggested tests that they should have every month is hip, eye, elbow, heart, patella, and thyroid testing, and their lifespan is 12 to 14 years. Now that you know that weird thing, you can now open up your ears if you are a child, but now you understand that you're not going to have any kids in the future. So what's the form and function of this animal? Well, the form and function of the Field Spaniel is that somewhat longer than tall, solidly built with moderate bone. The Field Spaniel is a dog without exaggeration. A combination of beauty and utility, its stride is long and low. Its head held proudly and Albertly, the whale tagging and not carried high. The Field Spaniel is built for both activity and stamina, enabling it to hunt in dense cover or water. It has single coat, which is flat and lightly wavy and moderately long, giving it protection from thorns and water. Its expression is grave and gentle. Now, for the final part of the episode, we have the tier list. 5 is the best, 4 is better, 3 is average, whatever. 2 is below, and 1 is the worst. And now, that's what you know. So, today we are going to the energy level, exercise requirements, playfulness, and nope, that's about it. Is out of 4. So basically, they're high energy, high exercise, high playful. Their affection level is out of 5, so they're very lovey. The friendliness towards dog is out of 3, which is one of the lower ones, but they're basically average. Friendliness towards other pets is out of 5, which is good. Friendliness towards strangers is out of 3, which, well, that's what it said. Ease of training and watchdog ability are out of 4, so they can watch, and you can teach them to watch. Protection ability is out of 2, so below average. Grooming requirements, cold tolerance, and heat tolerance are out of 3, which is about right. So these dogs should be groomed every so often, and, they can stand the heat and cold pretty well. The healthy weight of a Field Spaniel, no matter gender, should be 35 to 50 pounds, and the height of a male is 18 inches, and 17 for a female is 17 inches, or plus or minus an inch, depending on how they're grown. So that is the Field Spaniel. And next time we're going to be learning about, you know, what we learn about in the next episode. So yeah, I hope you guys are super fantastic, wonderful day. Be polite, be efficient, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm going to go take a bunch of water and go take a nap because I've been reading for a long time and really fast. Can you tell? Can you tell? I don't know. Can you tell? Can you tell? I don't know. Can you tell? Help me, please. Anyways, super fantastic, wonderful day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.